In the sleek downtown headquarters of a thriving tech startup, a quiet janitor in worn coveralls was moments away from witnessing something that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his workplace. What started as routine morning cleaning quickly turned into chaos when the operations manager began publicly destroying an employee's career over a minor formatting error. But Eddie Ross wasn't just a janitor. For over 15 years, he had operated as the CEO and founder of this very company, responsible for building it from a coffee shop startup into a multi-million-dollar empire. When Vanessa Green attempted to fire Luis Mercado in front of the entire office, she didn't realize she was triggering a reaction from someone trained to lead, protect, and fight for what's right. Ethan launched a 5-day undercover investigation that unleashed consequences far beyond what anyone expected, exposing a toxic culture that had infected his company from within. What began as emptying trash cans transformed into the most dramatic workplace confrontation the building had ever seen. After that day, the entire staff would never forget the name Ross. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden leadership and workplace justice, can you tell us where you're watching from right now? This tale of standing up for what's right might hit closer to home than you think. If stories about courage and fighting workplace bullies resonate with you, smash that like button and subscribe for more powerful narratives that prove ordinary moments can lead to extraordinary change. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like angry wasps as Vanessa Green's voice cut through the breakroom silence with surgical precision. Luis, this is exactly the kind of careless mistake that costs us clients. Her manicured finger jabbed at a minor formatting error on the quarterly report spread across the plastic table. How many times do I need to explain basic presentation standards? Luis Mercado's shoulders sagged as he stared at the document, his untouched sandwich growing stale beside his trembling hands. 3 other employees sat frozen at nearby tables, their conversations dying mid-sentence. The air grew thick with secondhand embarrassment. I'm sorry, Vanessa. I can fix it right now. Fix it. Her laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. Luis, you've been here 8 months. 8 months. At what point do you think we stop making excuses for subpar work? In the corner, a janitor in worn coveralls methodically mopped the same spot, seemingly invisible to the unfolding drama. His gray beard was unkempt, cheap reading glasses perched on his nose, shoulders hunched with the weight of menial labor. But behind those glasses, Ethan Ross's eyes burned with quiet intensity as he absorbed every cruel word. The janitor's mop moved in slow, deliberate strokes while Vanessa continued her public execution. She stood over Luis like a predator, her perfectly pressed blazer and sharp bob haircut a stark contrast to his rumpled shirt and defeated posture. Maybe you should consider whether this position is the right fit for your skill level. Luis flinched as if physically struck. The janitor's grip tightened on the mop handle. 40-8 hours earlier, Ethan had sat in his corner office on the 23rd floor, staring at a folder marked confidential HR concerns. The numbers painted a grim picture. Employee turnover, up 300% in 6 months. Anonymous complaints flooding the suggestion box. And exit interviews that read like war testimonies. I don't understand how this happened, Ethan had told Sarah Chen, his HR director, as rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. When I started this company, we were a family. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her chair. The growth has been challenging. Some managers are struggling to maintain your original culture while hitting aggressive targets. Some managers, Ethan's voice carried the same quiet authority that had built his company from a coffee shop startup into a tech empire. Let's call this what it is, Sarah. Someone is poisoning my company from the inside. That night, Ethan had stood in his penthouse bathroom, studying his reflection. At 42, success had insulated him from the daily reality of his own business. When was the last time he'd eaten lunch in the employee break room? When had he last spoken to anyone below director level? The transformation took an hour. A thrift store jacket, 2 sizes too large, faded jeans with authentic wear patterns, work boots that had seen actual labor. He mussed his usually pristine hair, let his 5 o'clock shadow grow into something approaching a beard, and traded his designer frames for drugstore reading glasses. By morning, Ethan Ross, the CEO, had vanished. In his place stood Eddie, a middle-aged janitor looking for steady work. The security desk didn't give him a second glance as he signed in with a temporary badge. Big Mike, the night shift security guard, finishing his rounds, paused for just a moment, his trained marine eyes lingering on the new janitor's posture, the way he carried himself despite the hunched shoulders. First day? Mike asked, his voice carrying decades of authority softened by civilian life. Yeah, hope it goes okay. Mike nodded slowly, a knowing glint in his weathered face. Word of advice, keep your head down and your ears open. You'll learn more than you bargained for. As Ethan made his way through the familiar corridors that now felt foreign, he caught fragments of conversation that chilled him, whispers about impossible deadlines and walking on eggshells. A young intern rushed past him, phone pressed to her ear, explaining to someone why she'd be late again. No, Mom, I can't leave until Vanessa approves the revisions. Yes, I know it's past 9. By the time he reached the break room the next morning and witnessed Vanessa's calculated cruelty toward Luis, Ethan realized the anonymous complaints had only scratched the surface. This wasn't just poor management, it was systematic dehumanization happening in his name. Under his roof, funded by his success, the janitor finished mopping and wheeled his cart toward the exit, but not before he caught Jasmine Liu's eyes. The 23-year-old intern sat at a corner table, her laptop open but forgotten, as she watched Luis gather his things with shaking hands. When she looked at the janitor, something flickered in her expression. Recognition, perhaps, or just the shared acknowledgement of witnessing something wrong. "Excuse me," she called softly as he passed. "Are you new here?" Ethan paused, adjusting his glasses. "Started yesterday, still learning the ropes. I'm Jasmine, and," she glanced toward where Vanessa had disappeared down the hallway, "I'm sorry you had to see that. It's not usually," she stopped herself, realizing the lie. "Actually, it is usually like that. I just wanted you to know not everyone here thinks that's okay." For a moment, Ethan saw his company as it should be reflected in this young woman's eyes. Then he nodded, pushing his cart forward. "Thanks, Jasmine. I'm Eddie. And don't worry, see a lot of things in this job. Most of them people don't expect me to notice." As he disappeared around the corner, Jasmine stared after him, that strange feeling of recognition tugging at her thoughts. There was something about the way he'd said her name, the subtle authority in his voice despite the janitor's uniform, something that didn't quite fit. The next 3 days revealed the full scope of the rot. Ethan moved through his company like a ghost, emptying trash cans that overflowed with the detritus of broken dreams, resignation, letters crumpled and discarded, printouts of job applications, hastily hidden under sandwich wrappers, tissues stained with tears shed in bathroom stalls. He witnessed Vanessa's morning ritual, arriving with her signature latte, surveying the floor like a general inspecting troops, then selecting her daily target for performance coaching. Luis bore the brunt of her attention, but no one was safe. She criticized the receptionist's greeting as insufficiently professional, questioned an intern's lunch choices as lacking commitment to health and productivity, and publicly dressed down a senior developer for taking a personal call. Time theft, she called it during a team meeting. Ethan overheard while replacing paper towels in the adjacent conference room. "Every minute you're here, you're either adding value or subtracting it. There's no neutral ground in competitive business." Through the frosted glass, he watched 20 employees not in mechanical agreement, their faces masks of forced compliance, but their body language told a different story. Crossed arms, averted eyes, the subtle lean away from their tormentor. Luis had become Ethan's particular concern. The soft-spoken man arrived 30 minutes early each day and stayed hours past closing, methodically working through tasks with quiet dedication. His desk held small photos, elderly parents in a humble living room, a young woman in a graduation cap, children who looked like him. During his lunch break, which Luis often skipped to catch up on work, Ethan found him in the supply closet, head in his hands. "Long day?" Ethan asked, pushing his cart into the cramped space. Luis looked up, startled, then quickly wiped his eyes. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone was. I'm not crying, just tired. Hard job." "The job's fine. It's just," Luis trailed off, then seemed to remember he was talking to the janitor. "Someone safe, someone invisible. You ever feel like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough? Like you're always one mistake away from losing everything?" Ethan set down his spray bottle, giving Luis his full attention. "What would you lose?" "My family's counting on me. My parents, they cleaned offices for 30 years so I could get an education. My sister just finished nursing school, I helped with her loans. And my kids," his voice cracked, "I promised them things would be different, that their dad would have a job with a desk and benefits and respect. You seem like a good man doing good work." Luis laughed bitterly. "Tell that to Vanessa. According to her, I'm a liability dragging down the team's performance metrics." That afternoon, Ethan watched Vanessa corner Luis again, this time over a client email that had been delayed by 30 minutes due to a server issue. She made him read his inadequate apology aloud to the entire customer service team, pausing to critique each sentence. "Do you hear how that sounds, Luis? Sorry for the inconvenience. Generic, impersonal, exactly the kind of corporate speak that loses clients. Try again." Luis's hands trembled as he held the printout. "I apologize for the delay in our response. We value your business and better, but still wouldn't. Lisa, show him how it's done." As Luis sank into his chair, defeated, Ethan noticed Jasmine watching from across the room. Her laptop was forgotten again, her youthful face etched with anger and something else, a recognition that this cruelty was wrong, even if everyone else seemed to accept it as normal. That evening, as the office emptied, Big Mike appeared beside Ethan's cart with his characteristic silent approach. "Settling in, okay, Eddie?" Ethan looked up from emptying a wastepaper basket filled with crumpled performance reviews. "Learning a lot about the place." Mike's weathered face creased into something that might have been a smile. "I bet you are. Funny thing about being invisible, you see everything. People forget. Janitors have eyes and ears." "And what do you see, Mike?" "I see a good man who built something beautiful, then got so busy looking at spreadsheets he forgot to look at people. Mike's voice carried no judgment, just the weight of observation. I also see that sometimes the best leaders are the ones willing to start over at the bottom. As Mike walked away, Ethan realized his disguise wasn't as perfect as he'd thought, but instead of panic, he felt something else: relief. Someone saw him, really saw him, and didn't condemn what he'd become. The next morning brought a staff meeting that would change everything. Vanessa stood at the front of the conference room, her presentation titled Optimizing Human Resources for Q4 Performance Targets. "I've identified several productivity drains that need immediate attention," she announced, clicking to a slide that made Ethan's blood run cold. Photos of employees filled the screen, prominent among them with ratings like improvement required and performance gap alert. "These team members represent our biggest opportunity for efficiency gains. Through targeted coaching and performance improvement plans, we can either elevate their contributions or make strategic personnel adjustments." Strategic personnel adjustments. Corporate speak for firing people whose only crime was being human. In an increasingly inhuman environment, Ethan watched Luce's face crumble as his photo appeared under immediate action required. Around the room, other faces registered fear, relief at being spared, or simply numb acceptance of corporate cruelty, dressed up in business terminology. Only Jasmine showed real emotion, her hands clenched into fists, her jaw tight with barely contained outrage. As the meeting ended and employees filed out in defeated silence, Ethan made a decision. He couldn't remain invisible any longer. The question wasn't whether to act, but how to do it in a way that would create real, lasting change, rather than just momentary satisfaction. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a leader could do was stop leading from above and start fighting from below. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Luis had been working through lunch again, trying to complete a client presentation that had been reassigned to him with a 2-hour deadline. His sandwich sat untouched beside his keyboard as he struggled with formatting requirements that seemed designed to be impossible. Ethan was restocking paper in the printer nearby when Vanessa approached Luce's desk like a shark, sensing blood in the water. "Luis, I need that Morrison Group presentation now. I'm almost finished, just need 5 more minutes to adjust the graphics." 5 minutes, her voice rose, drawing attention from surrounding cubicles. "This was due 30 minutes ago. Do you understand what deadline means?" Luce's face flushed. "The file was corrupted when it transferred from marketing. I had to rebuild the entire—" "I don't want excuses, Luis. I want results. Maybe the problem isn't the technology, maybe it's the user." A hush fell over the nearby desks. Ethan's hands stilled on the printer paper, his jaw clenching as he watched Luis shrink under the public humiliation. "I'm sorry, it won't happen again." "You're right, it won't." Vanessa's smile was predatory. "Clean out your desk. HR will be in touch about your final paperwork." The words hit the office like a physical blow. Luis stared at her, uncomprehending. "You're firing me over a delayed presentation?" "I'm terminating an employee who consistently fails to meet basic performance standards. This is just the final documentation we needed." Ethan watched Luce's world collapse in real time. The man's hands trembled as he looked around the office. Coworkers who avoided eye contact, at the family photos on his desk, at 8 months of careful work about to be erased with corporate efficiency. "Please," Luis whispered, his voice breaking. "My family, I need this job. I'll work harder. I'll stay later. The decision is final. Security will escort you out." That's when Jasmine stood up. "This is wrong." Her voice carried across the silent office like a bell. "Luis is one of the hardest workers here. He stays late, covers for other people, never complains. Miss Lee, this doesn't concern you, it concerns all of us." Jasmine's voice grew stronger, fueled by months of suppressed outrage. "How can you fire someone for one mistake when you've never acknowledged all the things he does right?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Jasmine, I suggest you return to your desk and focus on your own performance before you join Luis in the unemployment line." "Maybe I should. Maybe we all should." Jasmine looked around the room, searching for allies. "When did we become the kind of place that treats people like disposable resources?" For a moment, Ethan thought others might stand with her. He saw it in their faces, the desire to speak truth, to defend a good man being destroyed by corporate cruelty. But fear won. One by one, they looked away, returning to their screens and their self-preservation. Jasmine stood alone. "That's what I thought." Vanessa's voice dripped with satisfaction. "Luis, you have 30 minutes to pack your things, and Jasmine will be discussing your attitude problem in my office first thing tomorrow." As Vanessa stalked away, Luis began mechanically placing his few personal items into a cardboard box. His hands shook as he carefully wrapped each family photo, his movements those of a man trying to maintain dignity while his world crumbled. Ethan couldn't watch anymore. He abandoned his cart and followed Luis to the supply closet, where he'd found him crying days before. Luis was there, collapsed on a stack of copy paper boxes, his face buried in his hands. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside. Months of suppressed fear and humiliation finally breaking free. "I don't know what I'm going to tell my kids," he choked out when he saw the janitor. "I promised them things would be different. I promised them their father wouldn't be like their grandfather, working until his back broke and still never having enough. Ethan sat on a bucket beside him, every instinct screaming to reveal himself, to fix this immediately. But he forced himself to listen, to truly hear what his absence from the ground level had cost. I did everything right, Luis continued. I went to school, got the degree, learned the skills. I thought if I just worked hard enough, was respectful enough, careful enough, but it doesn't matter. We're all just numbers to them. You're not a number to everyone, Ethan said quietly. To the people who matter, I am. The people with power, with the ability to change things, we're invisible to them. Just like you are. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. Just like you are. He had become invisible to his own company, so removed from the daily reality that people like Luis suffered while he counted profits 23 floors above. That night, Ethan sat in his penthouse, staring at Luce's employee file. 8 months of positive performance reviews, customer commendations, volunteer hours for company charity events. A perfect record destroyed by one woman's need to demonstrate power. The next morning, he arrived early and went straight to HR. Sarah Chen was already at her desk, looking haggard. Sarah, I need to see the documentation on Luis Mercado's termination. She looked up, startled by his presence. Sir, I thought you were in meetings all morning. Plans changed. The file. With obvious reluctance, she handed him a folder marked termination, cause Ethan flipped through pages of fabricated performance issues, manufactured complaints, and retroactive policy violations. It was a masterpiece of bureaucratic character assassination. Who authorized this? Vanessa submitted it yesterday afternoon. She said you'd already approved the action. Ethan's vision went red around the edges. I approved nothing. Cancel the termination immediately. Sir, he's already been escorted out. Security has his badge. Then get him back. Now. An hour later, Ethan stood in the elevator, wearing his janitor's disguise for the last time. In his pocket was Luce's employee badge, reactivated with a promotion and a raise that would ensure his family's security. But first, there was a reckoning to attend to. The office was buzzing with nervous energy when he arrived. Word had spread that Luce's termination had been reversed by someone upstairs, though no one knew who or why. Vanessa paced near her office like a caged predator, her phone pressed to her ear as she demanded answers from HR. Ethan pushed his cart to the center of the floor and stopped. Then, slowly, he straightened his shoulders, removed the cheap reading glasses, and pulled off the janitor's cap. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. The hunched posture melted away, revealing the commanding presence that had built an empire. His voice, when he spoke, carried the quiet authority that had once inspired loyalty and respect. Attention everyone, I need you all to gather around. Conversations died mid-sentence, heads turned, faces registering confusion, then shock, then fear, as recognition dawned. Vanessa's phone call ended abruptly. She stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. Hello, Vanessa, Ethan said calmly. I believe you have something that belongs to one of my employees. The silence stretched like a held breath. 23 employees stood frozen in a tableau of shock, fear, and dawning understanding. Vanessa's face cycled through expressions: confusion, recognition, then a calculating attempt to salvage her position. Ethan, what an unexpected surprise. I didn't know you were conducting floor observations for the past 5 days. His voice cut through her words with surgical precision. 5 days of watching how my company operates when leadership isn't watching, or when they think leadership isn't watching? He moved to the center of the gathered crowd, still wearing the janitor's coveralls but now carrying himself with unmistakable authority. I've seen things that would have been impossible to discover from the 23rd floor. Things that make me question whether I recognize the company I built. Vanessa forced a laugh. I hope you understand that managing a high-performance team requires firm guidance. Firm guidance. Ethan's eyes found Luis, who had returned an hour earlier, looking bewildered and clutching his reactivated badge. Is that what you call publicly humiliating a man for a technical issue beyond his control? Is that what you call firing someone with 8 months of exemplary performance? The office was so quiet that the hum of fluorescent lights became audible. Ethan began to walk among his employees, speaking directly to them for the first time. In months, I started this company because I believed work could be different. I believed we could build something where people were valued, where talent was nurtured, where success meant lifting each other up rather than tearing each other down. He stopped beside Luce's desk, where family photos sat carefully arranged. Luis, would you mind sharing what you told me yesterday about your promises to your children? Luce's eyes widened. He glanced around the room, then back at Ethan. I had told them things would be different for us, that their father would have a job where hard work and respect mattered more than politics. And how has that promise been honored here? Luce's voice grew stronger. It hasn't. I've been made to feel like my dedication meant nothing. Like I was expendable despite doing everything asked of me, and more. Ethan nodded, then turned to Jasmine. And you, Jasmine? Yesterday you stood up when no one else would. Why? Jasmine lifted her chin, some of her earlier fire returning. Because someone had to. Because watching good people get crushed by bullies isn't the price of keeping a job. At least, It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, Ethan agreed. But it was. In my company, under my name, with my indirect approval through negligence, he turned to face Vanessa fully. Which brings us to you. Vanessa straightened her mask of professionalism firmly in place. Ethan, I think there's been a misunderstanding about my management style. Everything I've done has been focused on driving results. Results? Ethan's voice remained calm, which made it more devastating than shouting would have been. Let's talk about results. Employee turnover up 300%. Anonymous complaints averaging 12 per week. Client satisfaction scores declining for 3 consecutive quarters. If these are your results, they speak for themselves. He pulled out his phone and opened a document. But more than numbers, let's talk about the human cost. I've heard you call personal phone calls time theft. I've watched you mock Luce's lunch choices. I've seen you reduce grown adults to tears over formatting issues. His eyes met hers steadily. I've watched you create a culture of fear in a company I built on respect. I was trying to maintain standards. You were trying to maintain control. Through intimidation, there's a difference. Ethan turned back to the assembled team. I take full responsibility for allowing this culture to develop. I got so focused on growth and strategy that I lost sight of the people who make both possible. He moved to Luis again. Luis, I'm offering you a promotion to team supervisor, effective immediately. Your new salary will be 40% higher, with full benefits and a guarantee that your performance will be evaluated fairly and transparently. Luis stared at him, tears forming. Sir, thank you. Don't thank me. You earned it through 8 months of excellence that went unrecognized. Ethan turned to Jasmine. Jasmine, I'm offering you a full-time position as Culture Development Coordinator. Your job will be to help us rebuild what we've lost and ensure it never degrades again. Jasmine's eyes lit up. I accept. Finally, Ethan faced Vanessa. As for you, your employment is terminated immediately. Not for any single action, but for systematically creating a toxic environment that goes against everything this company stands for. Vanessa's mask finally cracked. You can't do this to me. I have a contract. You have a contract that includes clauses about maintaining company culture and values. You've violated those clauses repeatedly. His voice softened slightly. I hope you find a position that better matches your management philosophy. This company will no longer be that place. As security arrived to escort Vanessa out, Ethan addressed the room one final time. We're going to rebuild our culture starting today. Anonymous reporting systems that bypass management. Regular check-ins where I personally speak with people at every level. Culture committees with real authority. And most importantly, a return to the principle that respect isn't earned by title, it's earned by how you treat people when you think no one is watching. He looked around the room, meeting each pair of eyes. I spent 5 days learning that the people quietly holding this company together, the assistants, the interns, the night shift workers, were the ones being treated the worst. That ends now. Big Mike appeared at the edge of the crowd, nodding approvingly. Good speech, boss. Ethan smiled. Thanks, Mike. Though I have a feeling I'm going to need a lot more than speeches to fix this. Good thing you remembered what this place was supposed to feel like, Mike replied with a knowing grin. As the crowd dispersed and normal work resumed, though with a noticeably different energy, Jasmine approached Ethan. How long did you know? She asked. No, what? That I recognized you. I couldn't shake the feeling from day one. Ethan considered this. I hoped someone would see through the disguise. I needed to know if there were still people here who cared enough to pay attention. And what did you find? He looked around the office at Luis, organizing his new responsibilities with quiet pride. At coworkers actually talking to each other instead of whispering in fear. At the subtle but unmistakable shift in the room's energy. I found that respect isn't just a company value you put on a poster. It's something you have to practice every single day, in every interaction, whether anyone is watching or not. He paused. I also found that sometimes the most important thing a leader can do is remember what it feels like to be invisible. As Ethan walked toward the elevator, still wearing his janitor's coveralls, employees nodded to him with genuine warmth instead of perfunctory politeness. The difference was subtle but transformative. The difference between fear-based compliance and authentic respect. In the elevator, he caught his reflection in the polished steel doors. The disguise had been discarded, but the lessons remained. Leadership wasn't about commanding from above, it was about understanding from within, fighting alongside your people, and never forgetting that every employee was someone's Luis, someone's promise to their children for a better life. The elevator climbed toward the 23rd floor, but Ethan made a mental note to spend more time on the ground level. Some perspectives, he'd learned, were too important to view from a distance. If this story of hidden leadership and standing up for what's right resonated with you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales of courage, integrity, and human dignity in the workplace. Remember, real change starts when someone decides to stop being a bystander and starts being the leader their community needs. See you in the next story, where we'll explore what happens when ordinary people make extraordinary choices.